Okay, and if these 10-minute videos are boring, I'm really sorry, but hopefully people can handle a 10-minute video. I'm not even getting halfway through the page and there's so much to say. And I'm actually going to pop back up here. There's so much I didn't mention here. But I'm going to jump into this. We're talking about J.S. Bibbins. Last video I did show you here. He has a son named Elisha. This photographer, artist, his father is Elisha Bibbins, who did know personally Emma Smith and her entire family when they were in Pennsylvania. And then there are several websites that are just basically, Kendall Licken. I quote some of those websites that talk about the Bibbins family. And, but, this is Mark L. Staker and Curtis Ashton, I guess, helped. But his whole, this is not that long, but he has a 100-page article, that he did with BYU, I believe, where he's studying, Emma's family, basically. But you see partly down here, it's a little bit easier to get to this point. But if you click on his long article, which I actually have linked as well, Elisha Bibbins visited Susquehanna Valley. And then the Bibbins, they have some ancestry websites. It's just sort of like they have the records, so people study their own family history. They create their own websites. You can criticize that and not call it official, but I mean, it's someone else's family history. They're the ones that know the oral and that have the actual documents of their ancestors. So there's some things that are not going to show up here with Mark Staker because he's not really writing about the Bibbins family, but he does, the year 1812. I mean, that lines up with some of these family history pages for the Bibbins family that have the connection to J.S. Bibbins, who was the person who printed my photo. Okay, but this guy, his dad, visited the area, encouraged people to go pray, and Emma was apparently among those who took his advice. Some of her family thought that her own father, and this is like from books that Staker found and quoted, because they were Methodists, and they wrote a lot of everything down. They just did. They wrote down who every preacher was. That was also a new religion around just a little bit older than what some call Mormonism. We don't use that word, but the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, if you're not LDS and studying this. But anyway, some of her family thought that her own father, Avid Hunter, became converted to the faith as he overheard her prayers around this time that this guy is teaching her. So really, he was greatly influential in the family's faith. I mean, it's not necessarily to Mormonism at this point, or to the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, didn't exist at the time. But prayer and just any spirituality, that was huge. I don't think Emma would forget that. She was probably 1804, so she's almost 8. She's not too young to not remember this name, She's old enough. I remember things when I was 8. It's an important time in your life. It is that Elisha Bibbins. I've researched that upside down, sideways, vertically, just all over, and read a lot of their family history sites, which some of those are linked down here, and some of them have disappeared. I kept having to update my other website because they would just kind of change the name of their website, or I don't know, change their website. It's just a family genealogy website anyway, but they're official things. So like, these are census records, though. And so there is census records. I didn't screenshot this, that I have of other videos where there's 1850 and there's Elisha Bibbins, Alice. And then there are books talking about the Bibbins family, how he came from Pennsylvania. So there, here you go. He's from Pennsylvania. That's right there. Okay, and then Alice is the mother. She's 69. She's from Connecticut. They're all from, pretty much, this is West at this point, history anyway. Getting this authenticated in 2020 was something I was scared to do, to let somebody handle it and look at it, and it was expensive. So even though I owned it since 2017, I started talking to some professionals and just a lot of people. But I knew if I wanted to work with anyone that was professional, or, if they were going to write about it or say anything, I definitely needed to get this done by someone that wasn't just me saying this is real. And so I was told by someone in Beverly Hills, I was living in California at the time, not far from LA, and that Godwin Weaver, if anything was going to be written, and he studied chemistry. He's an extremely smart guy. I know people are paranoid of Mark Hoffman's and things like that, but technology has come a long way. Anyway, but he was highly recommended, and I actually talked to him about all these fears people were telling me about. I had just talked to a descendant of Joseph Smith when I talked to him, and was made aware of all these things that, I don't know, is this real, which I get anyway. And so I ramble about that because they brought up Mark Hoffman and things like that. And thing with him was just things just kept coming out that were just, whoa, just kept finding another thing. I mean, that guy had 8 years, and now a lot more than 8 years. We're at about 12 years, and he just hasn't. They're verified photos of him. Like, forgers would create another photo of him as stiff, and just nothing came out from the previous owner. But anyway, I always thought it was a paper photograph because, you can have a link here, learn about paper photography. So daguerreotypes and paper photography were invented in the 1830s, but just not patented till 1839. And so you got Henry Fox Talbot invented paper around not patented, so it wasn't really like given to the public till 1840, but he was working on it, patented 1841. And when Joseph Smith died in 1844, he was so developed in that and the world already knew about paper photography. It just wasn't as crisp as daguerreotypes, pop-ups. Pencil of Nature, though, 1844, where it is reprints from negatives. The year Joseph Smith was still alive, really. So I just was really big on that. I just thought, he's just possible. Sort of thought that till about 2020. You'll see that in my videos. That I just thought it was always a paper photograph. And there's another daguerreotype. Because I believed that people had all this evidence. And I'm slowly learning when I had time. And I'm also working my butt off doing like 2-3 jobs, When I bought this in this time, 2017, my life has just been, sometimes I've had downtime and I can study and learn all this stuff I never learned in college or cared about until now, if that makes sense, to give you some perspective on me. But, so daguerreotypes, you got 1841 daguerreotype. I think it was patented. Again, invented, both of them were invented around the same time. Well, they aren't going to say, but it was 1839, because actually daguerreotypes showed up in Pennsylvania in 1839. It's like they patented, and everyone's hands-on, and if they have those chemicals and materials, someone just read something from an article and started doing it. That was, someone figures something out. It's kind of like a recipe in a cookbook. Most people are creating a lot of times their own tools and things. They can create a little box and put those chemicals in there, and people did. People figured it out because they already had some of the tools that were needed for a camera, if that makes sense, even though there weren't cameras yet. Anyway, that's how it kind of so quickly, 1839, there was already daguerreotypes, even though that was France. America had them pretty quickly, 1839, and so a lot of people talked about Joseph Smith being other blogs, and I'm sure you've seen it. He was in Pennsylvania, and I don't know, Kim Marshall's blog is just like, I just reread it and found it so fascinating, and I think she's a very smart woman, and I'm grateful for her work, I'm grateful for all the blogs I read, even though I don't agree with a lot of their conclusions or hers. I'm so grateful for her research and everything, but I believed her. I just thought, there could be, and I didn't, even then, I never agreed with her, but, rambling, but, she said that Joseph Smith was like a couple blocks from one of the first daguerreotypists in Pennsylvania. I don't know if that's true. I actually didn't care to research that as heavily as she did, but because I didn't think my paper was a daguerreotype wherever it was. Anyway, Godwin Weaver. Here's his analysis, and so he says, that he didn't see anything that looked inauthentic, and he said it wouldn't necessarily be worth the thousands of dollars to go through other things, which I could do later. I could still do other tests, either through him or others. There's some other machines, but he said it actually wouldn't authenticate it anymore and make it more legitimate, if that makes sense, to do more than what he did. And he's like, generally, if it's fake, I can see something. And sometimes he says it's impossible, just to be honest. If you talk to him, that's what he thinks. So, measured the paper. He spent quite a long time on it. And I'd been talking to him for a little while before I went there. And he could have said, this is fake. He could have said, oh, Anyway, 1860s, I'd heard that before I went there. So I was aware of that, and I'd already found that Joseph Smith III, and that you could copy daguerreotypes onto carte de visites. But he was like, oh, yeah, it really does happen. It was great to talk to a professional. It was worth the several $100s I paid him to talk to a real professional and get that validation that it's okay, that it's a paper carte de visite. And I showed him Emma's daguerreotype and carte de visite that looked, and can't quote him, but I will say he was impressed with how similar the backgrounds were, and that, to me, that's huge. To other people it's not, but to me and him are like, that's interesting, like figuring out the lighting. It's sort of side lighting, but if you read through this is his words. He's a professional, not a member of the church, not my friend. You won't see me talking to him before this. He says 1860s, but that's, Joseph Smith III was around Bibbins. I mean, he also was around in the 1870s too, but this just happens to be 1860s. Of a male sitter, clearly photograph, and it looks like an older either ambrotype or daguerreotype. So both of those, they're metal, given the 1860s date. And he says it's a high contrast, loss of detail and highlights, lack of sharpness. And he just said a lot more as he talked to me. And to be honest, like, other people think that's great news. I was kind of disappointed. I'm like, how did it end up in the right perspective? And he said there's reversing prisms that they'd put on daguerreotypes, and or someone took a daguerreotype of that daguerreotype. And then, I mean, obviously people that love Joseph Smith, yeah, there could be 2 daguerreotypes out there and my picture of this, if this is him and if this is true. And he said that because there's so much loss of detail, which is very unfortunate for the study, but oh well. But daguerreotypes turned black. And just talks about all these little details. He thinks it was kept in a high humidity. Darkening of the mount makes it clear it wasn't an album, so that eBay seller was right. It was in a photo album that had written name Smith on it, and I saw one of those photos. And he didn't claim that she was anyone, but she really might have been someone, and I don't know what happened to it. I think he just got rid of his whole collection, and like I was saying, I was afraid he was going to destroy pictures, and he did. He's more into stones and things and magic and selling stones. I don't think he's selling anything. I think he's retired from all this. The previous owner. Anyway, there are oval, rectangular shapes. But just these little things. Cracking of the albumen surface, consistent with the thinner albumen coats of the 1860s. That's just when someone took a daguerreotype. Like, I know with Emma's case, they took it out of the case, photographed it, because you can see more than what's on her 1860s than her the daguerreotype in the case that it's in. I'm just rambling. That'll be in the next video. I'll stop this here and start moving on here. Anyway, have a good day.